lake house of some family friends. I knew where the key to the house was, and I knew where the gun was. It was a quiet day in December when I pulled into the driveway at the lake house. The key was still in the same place, and so was the gun. I took the gun down from the shelf and loaded it. Walking into the living room, I sat down on the couch and looked out across the lake. There, just across the lake, on a spit of land, was a beautiful weeping willow. Weeping willow. I had taken forestry classes in college, and as an English major, I had thrilled at learning the place held in literature, mythology, and legend by the trees I was learning about in forestry. Weeping willow. One of its associations is death. How apt, I thought, pulling my thoughts back in the lake house. I looked at the clock. It was 11:30 in the morning. Make no mistake about it. Coming face to face with your own death is a struggle. I both wanted to do this and not do it. But there was nothing else big enough, nothing else important enough to get me out of the whirlpool of depression. I lay alone, unconscious, and bleeding for 8 hours. When I regained consciousness, I struggled to sit up. I was covered in blood, some of it dry and crusty, and some still wet and sticky. And it was dark. It was completely dark. Thinking the blood might have dried my eyelids closed, I tried to pry them open. Still nothing. Putting the question of the darkness aside for the moment, I tried to figure out what to do next. The spark of the survivor was in me. I got to my feet and took the first step towards living again. I went in the kitchen and found the phone. I picked it up. I'd have to dial it by touch because it was still dark, all dark. I must have tried 6 or 7 times, but I just couldn't punch in my parents' number correctly. I had lost so much blood, I could barely stay on my feet. Giving up, I hung up the phone, and with my back to the refrigerator, I tried to decide what to do next. Then the phone rang. When I hadn't come home that night, my parents called everybody they could think of who might know where I was. One of the people they called was Johnny, the man who owned the lake house, and it was Johnny on the phone. I told him what I had done. He took charge. He summoned a neighbor, the police came, an ambulance came, and then we were headed back to Birmingham. On the 3rd or 4th night in the ICU, a family friend came in the room and said, "Yes, I think I can help you sell Sue's car." Sitting bolt upright in bed, I cried, "What? Why are you going to sell my car?" No one spoke. There could be only one reason they were going to sell my car. This darkness, this complete absence of life, was going to be my life. I was blind. I think it was Christmas Eve when the judge came to see me in the hospital. Kneeling beside the bed, he took both of my hands in his, and in a voice thick with emotion, he said, "I am so, so sorry." And that did it. For the first time, I broke through the walls I had built up around myself. For the first time since understanding that I was blind, I broke through the walls and I began to cry. Holding the hands of the man who had brought me into his world of horses, the man who had so much confidence in my abilities with Knight Commander, witnessing his tears, I finally began to cry. I wept for the loss of my sight, but we both knew it was more than the loss of my sight for which we wept. We wept for my lost way of life.